Hello YouTubers, this is for your do-it-yourself people. I've got a 06 Acura TL right here. I've seen a lot of information and a lot of videos online on how to replace an alternator. A lot of them were showing a lot of extra steps, so it was really unnecessary. From what I found on my own, to replace the alternator, it's pretty easy as long as you have a knowledge of some tools and stuff. I basically used a 10mm, a 14mm deep well, and a 12mm. You can start by taking this fan shroud off, which is right here in front of the motor. It has two bolts, which is right here on top, that bolt right here on this point here and this point here. And there's a plastic casing on the bottom, just a protective shield. It's got like two plastic clips you can remove, and it has a bolt. You can just kind of bend it out of the way a little bit, and right in the middle of the fan, there's one bolt at the bottom. You can take that bolt off, and then there's a couple of wires that need to be removed right in here. If you just remove them wires, they're attached to the side of the fan, and that fan will slide right up. After that, this little reservoir right here, this is a power steering reservoir. The power steering reservoir will just slide up. It's not really mounted, it just has like a little slide clip. It'll slide up and you can bend it out of the way to wherever you need to be. If you don't have a tensioner pulley, long bar, like a breaker bar, you can get them at Harbor Freight pretty cheap. You can take two wrenches and just kind of intertwine them, and that one bolt that you can see right there, that's the tensioner pulley. You can put that wrench on that bolt and force it forward counterclockwise, and that'll relieve pressure from your belt. You can pull your belt off, and then you're ready to remove your alternator. Well, for your alternator, there's a bolt. If you can see it, it's way down there at the bottom. If I can get it, there's one there. That's a 14mm. I used a deep well for this because an extension was just too long for the edge of the firewall, or not the firewall, but the fender well there. 14 worked great right there. And you can move the belt out of the way. And just kind of take note as well on your belt, the way your belt routing goes. You can just keep a kind of a mental note on that. After you remove that bolt, you got a bolt here too. Just a reminder too, before you start any of this, remove your battery. Totally disconnect your battery because you are dealing with electricity here, and for 12 volts and stuff, you don't want anything to short out or anything to mess up. So when you start, make sure your battery is disconnected before you start disconnecting these leads from the alternator, because they are hot. This one here, this one is just, you can move your boot out of the way there, and you can mash it and it'll come right out. It has like a little clip on it. This one here is a 12mm. You can just loosen it with a 12mm, move it out of the way. I found to remove this bolt as well, and there's a bolt right here that holds this bracket on, if you can see that. I removed that whole little bracket, which is this bracket here. Once you remove all this out of the way and get it out of the way, there's one more bolt, which is right there. That takes your alternator, it's this bolt right here, that bolt right there. You take that off, your alternator will come out free. You can just bring it right up through this little clearance here, bring it right up through the clearance, and the alternator will wiggle right out. You can take your new alternator, slide it back in place, put your bottom bolt in, put your little bracket back on, just basically reverse the steps that you did. Be sure to hook all your clips up that you need, all your parts to your alternator, put your little rubber boots on, plug everything up, just double check everything. You can slide this reservoir, and after you get your alternator on too, you can pick this reservoir up. You can see how I can pick it up and you can move it. Well, just move it out of the way, and then you got your belt as free as it can be. You can put your wrenches back on it, put all your belts the way they wind on it, and the pulley right below the belt, or the pulley right below your tensioner pulley that you use to loosen the belt with, put all your belts on it, and then slide your belt when you take the tension off of it, slide your belt over the lower pulley, because you can't put the pulley on here when you can't put the belt on here when you got your wrenches on. So it's easier to put it on here and slide your belt on the lower pulley over the top, and then you just check and look at your belt, make sure it's all in the grooves, and and if not, just loosen the idler pulley up again. It does have a lot of tension on it because that's what holds the tension on the belt. And just check everything. You can take this reservoir, and you can see the bracket right there where it just slides on, and you can just slide it right back in place. And just check everything, check your bolts, make sure everything's tight. You got, there's just a few bolts. Just make sure everything's on there correctly, and just basically you can slide this fan assembly back in place, bolt it back down, put your clips back on it, your bolts back on it, and your wires that clip on it, and bolt up your bottoms, put the bottom bolt in your shroud, your fan shroud, and just put your clips and bolts and stuff back on the bottom plastic plate, and you're pretty much done. You can charge your battery if your battery needs to be charged again. In this particular car, the owner had to drive it home basically on battery power, so it killed the battery, so I'm having to put it back on charge. And then you can just hook everything back up, and you can bump your car over a few times maybe if it don't start. That way it kind of just give you an idea what the belt's doing, to make sure the belt's on the right track, make sure it don't sling the belt. And then if everything looks fine, just fire the car right up and check your voltage, make sure everything's fine on your voltage, and you're good to go. I'd say it's depending on how mechanically inclined you are, it's right at maybe an hour job. It could be less, depends on your experience. But I found this job not that bad at all. You can make a little money on it if you're doing it. I'm just doing it for a friend, and just do it yourself. Or if you got a little bit of tools and a little bit of knowledge, you can do this yourself, because you know that the dealership's going to charge you anywhere between $300 and $500 to do this, and you can really save a lot of money. So I'm glad you're watching. This is my first video I'm actually going to try to put out, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope I have more to come. Thanks. Bye.